Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Theme Park News. This one is mainly comprised of bad news, but there's a little bit of good news sprinkled in there. So let's get up, but I want this video to have a positive ending, so we're gonna start off with the bad news stories first. For our first news story, Six Flags is apparently removing 15 rides from across their parks. We don't know which rides they are yet, but hopefully none of them are roller coasters or historic rides. Roller coasters are roller coasters. They're fun. A lot of people like them. And they're the most sad to see go. And historic rides such as Six Flags Over Texas Log Flume, the first in the country, might be going because they probably cost a lot to operate because you constantly have to pump water through them. So let's just hope none of those rides are going to be removed. Our second news story is about Kennywood, who is removing four rides from their parks. All of these rides are classics. The first one, which is probably the least sad, is their Paratrooper. It opened up in 1976, so it is getting removed after 44 years of being at the park. Fortunately, there are quite a few paratroopers left in the country. I believe there's one at Knoebels, and there's definitely one at Waldemere. And both of those parks are pretty close to Kennywood. I believe there's also one at Indiana Beach. The second ride getting removed is their Hoos Enterprise, called Volcano. Sadly, there are very, very few of these left in the country. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is the one at Worlds of Fun, which might have its days numbered. Hopefully this ride can be relocated to another park because they're very rare. Now we're on to the last two rides they're removing, which are both pretty sad. This next ride is the Bayern Curve, which are pretty rare now. This ride opened up in 1994, but it was definitely manufactured before that since Schwarzkopf went out of business before that. This ride was loved by the park guests. While I have never ridden one myself, it looks amazing. It looks like it provides some insane lateral G's. And it just looks like a fun ride. So it's a shame that it's getting removed. Fortunately, it looks like Knoebels is getting one next year, as one has arrived on their parking lot. And the last ride we're going to be talking about is Kangaroo. Apparently, Kennywood is removing their classic Kangaroo ride, which opened up in, I believe, 1964, but I could be wrong on that. I'll put the date below if I'm wrong. This ride is loved by park guests, and removing it is kind of ironic since their mascot is Kenny the Kangaroo. So, there's no ride called Kangaroo anymore, which is kind of ironic. But this is sad. There's pretty much none of these left in the world, let alone the country. So I hope they can find a buyer for it instead of getting totally scrapped. But I have hope. But I don't really have too much hope. Alright, our next story is some good and bad news from Cedar Fair. So, Cedar Fair is focusing on a pandemic season for next year, so we're going to have the same issues as this year, possibly. But Cedar Fair has announced that they have gained more revenue than they lost. So, they have made a profit, which means they're going to be okay. So, let's hope they can add new rides and just stay in business and keep our parks open. Because that's amazing. Because we love theme parks on this channel. And our next story, this is one of we're into the good ones now, like that last one. Knott's Berry Farm has announced a new event, and they have reopened up. I believe it's like a food festival-like event, but sadly, they've only partially opened up. No rides are open under California regulations. I hope we can see them open up by Christmas or January at most. Otherwise, not too big of a deal, but it is really affecting the city of Anaheim with Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm closed. And our last story is that King's Dominion, it is confirmed that they are getting an SNS free spin by this photo, which I will show right now. Apparently, it is going in the Safari Village where the crypt was. So, hey, looks like King's Dominion is getting a new coaster this quickly. Unlike their 8-year gap between I-305 and Twisted Timbers. So, that's gonna do it for this episode of Theme Park News. I hope you enjoyed it. We've had some good stories and some bad stories. So I guess you could call this a roller coaster of emotions. I'll get out of here right now. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.